Good. So everyone welcomes you all in the class of Project Appraisal in Finance. Finally, we are moving to the finance part now. There are a few more topics to be covered in the second module, specifically about selecting the project location, identifying the technology. I'm leaving those topics up to you. Around two to three topics are there. I'm keeping this as a self-learning because I know that there is no technical sort of a things involved over there. It's just a theoretical, conceptual, point-to-point understanding. So I think I'm keeping this up to you for your self-reading. If you are stuck anywhere in reading of those topics, please let me know. We are moving to the third module now. And third module is divided into two parts. One part is specifically dealing with the source of finances. Now here in this case, we have already studied the source of finances in the financial management. So the viewpoint to look at the source of finances will be slightly different. It's not just about understanding the features of the source of finances. It's about making the combination in the capital structure. What are the various pros and cons of it? Try to understand this. How there would be the implications on the taxation aspects. What kind of a combination you will be selecting for the source of finances so that you will be able to avoid the taxation to the maximum extent. So that kind of, analytical aspects will be covered more rather than just giving you the features of the source of finances. Even if we cover the features, there has to be some analytics behind it. What will be the implication of this feature if we'll be stuck into some kind of a practical scenario or situation? Or if you are establishing your startup, or if you are been given a kind of a task where you will have to prepare the capital structure. So what are the points we'll be taking in that? So entirely a practical perspective we'll be looking to. So let me just give you the idea that what are the topics that you will be doing for the self-study. Just opening my syllabus file, second module. So selection of the appropriate technology has been done by me last time around. Acquisition of the technology, choice of the good location of the project. You can see over there the last part of the second module. And the last one is the design of the layout of facilities at the project site. Now this entirely is the do's and don'ts kind of things, that what are the points we'll have to take into account while doing this. I think you will be able to do it quite well by doing the self-learning. Fine, no worries, Joe. I'm keeping these two topics up to you. Let's move to the third part. As I've already stated, the first part is related to the project financing. Now here, it's not just about the source of finance we are going to cover. There are certain innovative sources as well to finance your projects and startups. We are going to cover that too. If I give you a very simple example, there is something called seed financing. People are not aware about it. There is something called social media financing. People are not aware about it. People are not aware about the various venture capitals which are available over here. If you want to start your business, you can reach out to certain angel investors, you can reach out to certain venture capitalists, you can reach out to certain companies who are solely investing in the startup ideas. So those innovative things as well we are going to cover. And the second part is more about project risk analysis. Now, the project risk analysis is the extension of the capital budgeting. If I give you the beat idea about it, I'm just giving you the overview. So, capital budgeting was all about whether to invest in the project or not. For that, we had seen various methods, if you can recall it a bit. IRR was the one, NPV was the one. There were various other methods that we were looking to check that whether we should invest in the project, whether our required rate of return is getting satisfied or not. What is exactly the rate of return we are getting from this project? How do we estimate the cash inflows and outflows of the project? Now this one is, once you estimate that whether you should invest in the project, now it's about doing the risk analysis. For that, we'll be applying certain models there. Now again, that's gonna be a very practical aspect where some data oriented work needs to be done. So this module is pretty much balanced. The first one is more about the conceptual understanding, but yes, the practical overview about the things and the applications would be given to you. And number two, is the project risk analysis, where the data oriented exercises needs to be done. Now the problem here is that we are going to write the pen paper examination, and the things that we will be doing in the Excel or by using some other software will be bit more data centric, where too much of data will be taken into account. I will not be making any compromise. When it comes to the examination, we must be aware about how to write the question and answer, and because at that time I have the limitation of putting the short amount of data, I cannot give you too much of data while doing the pen paper based examination. But yes, we are not going to do any sacrifice in the data driven things as well. So we'll be taking some of the scenarios, we'll be putting the data in the Excel, and we are going to do some work over there too. Okay, and by the next lecture you should also expect one project from my side. I'm just right now planning it, but that project is based on the third module, so that's why I haven't given it to you yet. Once the completion of the third module will be done, will be there, then after this we may move to the project. Okay, so let's move to the project financing, and I would be starting it with presenting in front of you the the case study. I have shared one image with you in your WhatsApp. Let me just open that image. I'm just disconnecting for a while because of the privacy concern, Just give me 1 second. I'm sharing this and then I'll again present it, because that's there in a WhatsApp. That's why. I hope many of you would have already read this. If you have read it, no, you can just give me the brief idea about what's there in the study. That's perfectly fine. You must not be a very much technically sound in giving your answers. You can just give me the brief idea and overview that what's there in that image, and why I have covered that case study over here in the third module, right at the starting. Please look at this image and let me know, everyone. Okay, presenting the screen again. I have downloaded that image, and here we are. Visible? No, not yet. Taking some time to get open. Good. So what is the headline of this? How Reliance Industries Limited and Jio raised billions without paying any tax. Now this entire smartness was lying in the capital structure framing. Can you imagine the magnitude at which the Reliance has sought the money from the people? Lakhs of crores. In totality, if I give you, they have raised somewhere around 1,50,000 crores from the various stakeholders, including the Facebook, Google, some of the giants they have collaborated with in the industry. And they haven't paid any amount of tax by selling the stake from the Reliance Jio. Basically, if I give you the structural idea about Reliance Jio and the Reliance Industries Limited, Reliance Industries Limited is the holding company of Reliance Jio. Reliance Jio is a separately formed company specifically dealing in the communication business. Now, how they framed a capital structure in such a manner that they could avoid the tax like this? They haven't paid any amount of tax. That's the reality. What would have they? What they would have done? And if I tell you, if they wouldn't have done the good amount of planning over here, no, in this capital structure, the taxation amount would be somewhere around 20,000 to 25,000 crores. because long-term capital gains and short-term capital gains tax on the capital gains, if you can recall it, as per the income tax, is somewhere around 15 to 20% of the gain. This amount could have been too high, somewhere around 10,000, 15,000 of crores. This much of a savings you would have done by doing the efficient and effective planning. What they have done. Try to read it. Can someone give me the brief idea about it? If you have read it, giving you 5 minutes uninterrupted. Read it and let me know. Not readable from this, Aruna? I think not, no? It's blurred actually. Okay, I'll have to go down. I guess it's too big to read right now for you. Okay, let me just give you the gist of this entire case study. It's entirely the capital structure planning, nothing else. And why I'm covering this? Because the source of financing is more about the capital structure planning only. Now, if I give you the structural idea, let me just start the Excel file. Just give me 1 second, please. I want to draw some notations and everything, that's why. Okay. So here is the Reliance Industries Limited. And here is the Jio. Now, Jio was the wholly owned subsidiary of the Reliance Industries Limited at that time. Now, what they had done was, see, Jio was something which was a debt-driven company. It was not purely financed by the equity shares. It was the combination of equity shares as well as the debt. So one part was the equity, another one was the debt. Now, what was there in the debt portion? In the debt portion, they had optionally convertible preference shares. OCPS, optionally convertible preference shares. Now, what is this optionally convertible preference shares? First of all, see, these were the shares actually, but these were the parts of the preference shares and optionally convertible. That's why they were forming a part of the debt actually at that time. Now, optionally convertible माने के the one who holds the share may or may not convert this into the equity whenever there would be a time given to them. So within the time period, they may convert, or on a specified day, they may convert this share into an equity share, or they may not opt to convert this share into equity share. Now what happened? They have converted this optionally converted preference shares, first of all, into the equity before doing the settlements with the foreign collaborators like the Facebook and Google, to whom they have sold the stake. They first converted this optionally convertible. Now, who was holding this optionally convertible preference shares? That was also held by Reliance Industries Limited only. Try to understand what they have done. Now, they have converted into the equity. Now, this equity was given to the foreign collaborators who came up with the Reliance Industries Limited in purchasing the stake from Jio. So there were Facebook, there were various other parties. Now, because of the fact that it was the optionally convertible preference shares, it was not considered as the transfer in the Income Tax Act. If they would have just a shares, no, यहाँ पे सिर्फ शेयर्स होते और रिलायंस में इफेक्टिवली ये शेयर्स अगर फॉरेन कोलैबोरेटर्स को दिए होते तो देन इट वुड हैव बीन कन्वर्टेड इनटू द कैपिटल गेन, and capital gains is chargeable to long term or short term based on the period for which the transaction has taken place, based on the holding period of the shares actually, and they would have paid the tax on it. Now it was not the shares, it was optionally convertible preference share. It was more sort of a debt, and that's why on the conversion of optionally convertible preference shares into the equity at the first instance, Reliance did not pay any tax because it was just a conversion from debt to equity, which is not chargeable for the tax. Number 2 point. Now this equity was transferred to the Facebook and all the foreign collaborators. At that time, the capital gains has to be paid, but see, if this stake is being sold to the foreign investors, then income tax again states that the non-resident foreign investor won't be paying any tax on it. Now there were certain regulations behind it. You may read this case study again. They have taken the advantages of the current legislative system we have. They have taken the advantages of some of the loopholes we had in the system. Cannot be called as a loophole, but there were certain provisions inserted just for the better tax planning as well. Loophole is something which is little bit negative in nature. It might not be a loophole, but they have taken the advantages of the some of the provisions of the. Now that's what has been the nature of Reliance Industries Limited since last many number of years. They have always taken the advantages of whatever the prevailing loopholes either or some certain things in the taxation system. In fact, in the 2007 and 8, there were new provisions inserted specifically for the Reliance Industries Limited. And they haven't paid any tax on it. This is entirely the capital. Now, who told them that you should, Reliance Industries Limited should hold the optionally convertible preference shares instead of equity shares? Number 1. Number 2, the conversion of optionally converted preference shares into the equity shares will not be attracting any tax liability. They were aware about it. Number 3, on the transfer of this equity share to the foreign person who was the non-resident of India, over there too, the taxation was not applicable. They were aware about it. They haven't paid any tax on the conversion. They haven't paid any tax on the selling as well. So right at the planning stage, when the Reliance Jio was framed, at that time this planning was made. Try to understand this. At that time, the optionally convertible preference shares were put into the picture. So it is the planning right since the inception. They have sold the stake just in 2 to 3 months or 4 months back, but the planning was happening since the inception. That was a well-planned, well-strategic move, well-framed strategic move. So that's why capital structure is something which is quite important when it comes to the project and the startup. How you frame your capital structure. Many of the things are dependent on the capital structure. Number 1, the succession planning. Number 2, the control over the company. If you just take the debt and borrowing from the people, then the control will be effectively of the owners. The people from whom you have taken the debt and borrowing do not effectively enjoy any control over the company. They will not be interfering into the management of the company. It is applicable, it is important from the perspective of the taxation, that which one is the best suited as far as the taxation for the company is concerned. Control, voting rights, taxation. There are various perspectives to look at the capital structure. And accordingly, one optimum capital structure is framed so that you can minimize your taxation. Number 2, you can plan your succession effectively. Number 3, there is a transferability as well, that if someone is coming new to the capital structure, if new owners are introduced, there must be a smooth process as well. Number 4, the dilution is not taking place in the control of the existing people. If you introduce the new people, then what will happen to the existing people? They are effectively losing the control over the company. Now, taking into account all these factors, we frame the optimum capital structure. And that's why this module is important. I hope everyone is clear. Now, in this, we would be exploring the advanced and the new sort of capital, what do I call, financing as well. We'll be covering the private equity, we'll be covering the venture capital, we'll be covering the seed financing, various other ways which are very innovative nowadays, the social media financing as well we are going to cover, and their pros and cons as well will be discussed. I hope that's clear to everyone now. May I have the confirmation from the student that it's, shall I move ahead to the equity? Let's go to the pros and cons of it from the practical point of view. May I have the confirmation from the students till now? Good. From Pooja, from Jalpa, good to see. From
Yes, sir.
From Dhara too, good to see that. From Haley as well. Let's move ahead. I'm not again going into the what is the financing decision, because this everything is already been discussed in the financial management. I'm just going straight away to the pros and cons of equity directly from a very practical perspective. Let me just start the slideshow here. Good. As simple as that. Equity shares, the very simple meaning is those people are the real owners of the business. When I say equity shares, they have been enjoying the voting rights. When I say the voting rights, that means when the annual general meeting takes place of the company specific matters are discussed as per the Companies Act 2013. Every rights are not belonging to the board of directors. The board of directors cannot take every decision on their own. Some of the decisions require the majority participation or the affirmation from the shareholders side. For that, basically the two kinds of resolutions are passed. One type of resolution is called as the ordinary resolution. Another type of resolution is called as the special resolution. In terms of ordinary resolution, you will have to seek 50% of the majority, and in the special resolution, a person will have to seek 75% of the majority. Now, there are specific activities given to you in the Companies Act where either ordinary resolution will be taken from the shareholders or the special resolution will be passed from the shareholders. It is nothing but the type of voting. You pass on the circular among the shareholders and they would be doing the voting. Now, voting will be based on the number of shares held by them. It's not based on the individual manner, right? So if someone is holding 40% of the shares of the entire company, then his voting right is up to how much? 40%. As simple as that. Because individually there is a possibility that there would be n number of shareholders, but one person is holding 50% of share of it. And if one person is holding 50% share of it, that means he has effectively got the control over the company because his voting right is 50%. So it's based on the number of shares you have. Now, the matters are given in the Companies Act where board of directors can take the decision. That means for that, those matters, they won't have to refer equity shareholders or anyone. Board of directors, all the directors that the company has appointed will be meeting and they would be deciding based on the majority principle that whether we should take the decision or not. These are the matters prescribed in the Companies Act. For some of the matters, you will have to pass the ordinary resolution, and some of the matters you will have to pass special resolution. Otherwise, you cannot do that. If I give you one example, if you want to issue the fresh equity shares, at that time, Ms. Aruna, you require the special resolution from the shareholders. Otherwise, you cannot issue the new equity shares. When I say special resolution, that means from the existing shareholders, you require 75% of the majority yes to do this task. Otherwise, you cannot. So they enjoy the voting rights. Now, preference shareholders do not have the voting rights. But if The Articles of Association specifically provides, Articles of Association is the Constitution, Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association. These are the two documents which governs the entire company. If it specifically provides that the preference shareholders will also have the voting rights, then it's a different matter. But generally, preference shareholders do not have any voting rights. Overwhelming situations, if you see, overwhelming majority of the situations and the companies we have established here in India, preference shareholders do not enjoy any voting rights. Only the equity shareholders enjoy the voting rights. Now they have got effectively the control over the management of the company. They are eligible to get the dividend if the company earns a profit. Number two, it's not the compulsion from the front of company to pay the dividend to the equity shareholders. It's not a compulsion. Even if there is a profit, it's not a compulsion. If Mr. Dabang comes to the company and says that you have earned so much of profit, I also require 10% of the dividend, company is not obliged to pay the dividend to the equity shareholder, even in case of they have got a profit. A dividend is declared by the board of directors, and that is proposed by the board of directors in the annual general meeting. And on that proposed dividend, the equity shareholders give their ratification. So please put it in the back of your mind that it's not the compulsion for the company to give the dividend, even though they earn the good amount of profits. In case of the loss and insufficient profits, it's anyway, company is not bound to give the dividend. That's understood pretty much. But even in the case of the profit, it may say no for the dividend. Equity share capital cannot be redeemed during the lifetime of the company. Then some of you might be like, sir, if it cannot be redeemed during the lifetime of the company, then how it can be cancelled? Once the equity shareholders are in, they are permanently in or what? Now see, some of the regulations depends on what type of company it is. It can be public company, it can be private company, listed company. Now try to understand. You must have seen something about buyback of offer. Buyback offer. You must have heard that word, right? Now that buyback offer which company gives, no, as the name itself suggests, it's offer. So some students comes to me and says that, sir, you said just now that it cannot be redeemed during the lifetime of the company, and now you are saying that there is a buyback of offer which can be given by the company. So effectively what happens in the buyback of offer is that company comes up with a proposal that if anyone wants to cancel their shares off, we would be paying you more amount as compared to your market price right now. Say the market price of the share is 200, we would be paying you 250 rupees, but you'll have to cancel your shares. Buyback offer. Then just now you said that it cannot be redeemed during the lifetime of the company. It's more about the compulsion. Company cannot force shareholder to cancel their shares. Company cannot force it. Yes, they may come up with the offer. It's up to the shareholder that whether they want to participate in that offer or they do not want to participate in their offer. They can roll out the cancellation plan of the shares. That's pretty much understood. But this cancellation of the shares is entirely up to the shareholder. They may participate, they may not participate. Is it clear? Company cannot force any shareholder to cancel off the shares at their will. ये तो कैसी बात हो गई, ओनर को ही निकाल दिया, ओ मुकेश अंबानी तुम्हारे शेयर्स चलो कैंसिल कर देते हैं. चलता है ऐसा? नहीं चलता. The liability of the equity shareholders is the value of unpaid value of the shares. So their liability is limited. There are certain unlimited companies as well where the liability of the shareholders is unlimited in nature. When I say limited in nature, that means they are supposed to give only the amount which they have committed. I'm sure you must have got the shares of Kingfisher. You must have heard about the shares of Kingfisher Airlines, right? If Vijay Mallya does something wrong, then आप उसके शेयर होल्डर हो तो कंपनी आपके पास आती है कि भाई तुम तो शेयर होल्डर हो, तो चलो तुम्हारा गला पकड़ते हैं। अब किसी का पैसा लेके नीरव मोदी चले जाता है तो उनकी कंपनी के शेयर होल्डर के पास लोग आते हैं कि तुम्हारे पैसे दो, नीरव मोदी लेके चले गए। Their liability is limited, but this is not the case when it comes to the partnership, where the liability is entirely unlimited. They are mutually as well as individually liable for the acts done by all the partners. Equity shares can also be called as the permanent source of finance. सातों जन्म का रिश्ता. They cannot be cancelled. Residual claim on the income. The dividend is something which will be given only out of the profits. So after making all the expenses, after making the payment to the government in terms of taxation, if anything is left, then again it is up to the company that whether we should pay or not. Right? So it's घर वाले बाद में, घर के है तो बाद में. Residual claim on the assets as well. When the company go into the liquidation, no, when the company gets shut down, at that time, the first, I mean, whatever the assets and liabilities you have, what you will be doing, you will be realizing those assets. You will be selling off those assets. At that time, whatever the money that you have gathered, the first amount would be given to all the people who are outsiders. And in outsiders as well, the first amount would be given to the secured loan. When I say secured loans, they have already created some kind of a charge on your assets. The charge can be the mortgage, the charge can be the pledge, the charge can be hypothecation. So the first amount would be given to the people who have created the charge on your assets. If you have taken the commercial property on loan, then on that commercial property, the mortgage is created, which is the immovable property. Then if you are selling that immovable property, obviously the first amount from that would be given to the person from whom you have taken the loan. Then it would be given to the unsecured people from whom you have taken the money. Then it would be given to the preference shareholders. And if anything is left now, then it would be given to the equity shareholders, ghar wale, baad mein. But the good thing about this is that there is a possibility that there would be quite a good amount of money left after making the distribution of the other people. So if you have got a good amount of money to be distributed to the people, it's beneficial. Yes or no, yes or no? If I give you one of the examples, if you have heard about the Majesco, सुना है Majesco किसी ने? Majesco share price?
Yes, sir.
Right. Can you just brief me about what was there in the Majesco share price? You know, that entire incident took place.
Like they give the
Your voice is getting cut. What happened? Internet connectivity is not so good or what? Your voice is getting cut. Not audible only. Can anyone listen what Miss Hale is saying?
no, sir.
Right. So it's not just a problem in me, you know, it's the problem everywhere. Good. एक बार है ना, एक पेशेंट था, उसको कुछ तकलीफ हुई तो वो डॉक्टर के पास गया। तो वो बोल रहे कि मैं जहां पे भी टच करता हूँ ना वहां पे मेरे को दुखता है। तो डॉक्टर बोल रहा है कि ऐसा कोई तो डिसीज है ही नहीं, जहां पे भी टच करो वहां पे दुखता है, ऐसा क्या हो गया भैया? उसने तो बहुत सारा रिसर्च किया लेकिन कुछ नहीं मिला। लेकिन बाद में मालूम पड़ा कि उनकी उंगली में कुछ लगा था, तो जहां पे भी टच करो वहां पे दुख रहा है। some people are like, मेरे को नहीं समझ में आ रहा, मेरे को नहीं सुनाई दे रहा। बेटा तेरे में प्रॉब्लम है, मेरे में नहीं। Okay, let's move on. Now, that is a classic case of the residual claim on the asset. Huh? What happened that the Majesco share price was somewhere trading around 1000. Then people came to know that the company is going to delist from the exchange, because their major business unit, which was situated in the United States, was sold actually. So they had received the good amount of money from their major business. So if I give you just one example, no, from the 100%, 90% of the activity was sold actually. So their price was 11,000 rupees before this entire sale of unit took place. Now they had declared that they would be paying this amount of money which they have received from the sale of the asset to the shareholders by way of dividend. So people started investing in this company. So the share price reached somewhere around 1,000 rupees. Then they paid a humongous amount of dividend, somewhere around 934 rupees per share they had paid the dividend. And just in a day, the share prices got crashed to 10 rupees, somewhere around 5 to 7 rupees. At that time, we had done the research that if this share is now available to you, you should purchase it, because right now the share price is 10 rupees. But if you do the valuation of the rest of the amount of assets this company possesses, even if this is just a 10% of what they had previously, 90% of the stake, the asset which was the US subsidiary which was sold, understood. But the 10% of the asset was majorly the residential property in the Lower Parel in Mumbai. Now, if you divide the number of shares by the valuation of that property, then the valuation was somewhere reaching to 45 or 50 rupees per share. Now, if that share is available at 10 rupees, will you be purchasing it or not? Because whenever the company is going to be dismantled, when the company will be selling off this property at the Lower Parel, Mumbai, they are going to get per share 45 rupees, right? Right now I am investing at 10 rupees. I had recommended to the other people that if this share is available to you and if you are able to get it, purchase it, fine. That was purely based on the valuation. Because whenever the residual assets will be distributed, when I say the residual asset, that means after encashing those residual assets, the amount will be distributed. You will be getting 45 or 50 rupee per share. Right to control. मुझे हक है. They are the people who are controlling the management. They are the people who can change the management. Shareholders can pass the special resolutions. Shareholders can pass the special resolutions to change the management as well. If they feel that this fellow is not good for the company, not doing well for the company, we want to change the management, they can dismantle the entire management. Voting rights, that is again a feature. Then it comes the preemptive right, again a very good feature. Please try to understand this. Preemptive right. Now, as per the Companies Act 2013, the preemptive right is given to the equity shareholders. If I give you the example, say company had 100 shares, out of which 50 was owned by A and 50 was owned by B. So 50% of the shares both were having. Then company came up with the fresh issue. Ms. Aruna, when I say the fresh issue, that means they have come up with a new equity shares. They introduced 100 equity shares again. And that was given entirely to the outsiders. The people who are not A and B, outsiders were given this 100 shares. So now the company would have total number of 200 shares. Out of this total number of 200 shares, A is again possessing 50, B is possessing 50, and the others are possessing now 100. So effectively the control over the company is reduced of A and B, because A were holding 50% of the shareholding. Now they have 50 out of 200. That means they just have 25% of the shareholding. So if company comes up with the new fresh issue and company is allowed to do so, then what will happen, that the voting share of the existing shareholders will get diluted. Yes or no? Their control over the company will get diluted, because they would just be making 25% of the decisions now. Earlier, the A person who was getting 50%, that means he was having the weight of 50% in the decision taken by the company where the shareholders' approval was required. Now we'll just be contributing only 25%. The dilution is taking place. There was a earlier as well. There was a the provision of the preemptive right in the 1956 version of Companies Act, but in 2013 they had removed few of the complexities from the preemptive right. That if you are coming up with the new equity shares, Ms. Aruna, a company, the existing shareholders must also be given the shares so that the dilution does not take place. They have the right to get the shares first. Now, when the fresh issue takes place, no, the special resolution is required. So when I say special resolution, that means 75% of the shareholders must say yes to this decision. Then only the new shares will be issued, otherwise not. So if shareholders are giving the permission to issue the new shares, then it's fine. If the special resolution is passed, and because they are only giving the permission that it's okay, we are ready to dilute our holding. So company has two options. What they can do is they can come up with the new equity shares, or they may just purchase it from the existing shares. Existing shareholder जो है उनके पास से वो purchase कर लेंगे, and then they would be issuing that share to the people who are investing new now. So they have two ways. One is come up with the entirely new shares. Number two, existing के पास जितने हैं उनके पास से थोड़े से ले लो और वही शेयर नए को इश्यू कर दो. So they have these two ways. So preemptive right basically means कि existing shareholder को सबसे पहले इश्यू करने हैं so that the dilution in the earning does not take in the shareholding does not take place. But anyway, if they are passing the special resolution, that means they are telling that it's okay, we are ready to dilute our shareholding, then it's fine. But company on its own way cannot do it. The preemptive right is given to the shareholders. They have the first right to get the shares from the new shares issued by the company. They have got the limited liability as well. So these are the various features of the equity shares when it comes to the equity financing. Now in the next lecture, we will be exploring the preference shares and some of the other optionally convertible preference shares, and how we can use it to frame the capital structure will be covered in the next session. So if you have any doubt related to any of the points that we have discussed today, you may raise the concern. Otherwise, I would be assuming that you have got everything. May I have the confirmation from the students, please? Is everything absolutely fine till now?
Yes, sir.
So we have effectively done, the features of the equity shares. And once we are absolutely clear with the features of it, then while framing the capital structure, we may take various considerations into account. That if I want to prepare a capital structure which will be minimizing the tax, then what are the avenues you will be taking? If I want to frame the capital structure which will be something like, I do not want to give too much of control to the other people, only the few shareholders should have the control over it, then how you will be framing the capital structure. So those kind of situations and scenarios will be covered. Fine. So you may just give your attendance by putting your enrollment number there. And here I have Aruna. Aruna, what's your enrollment number? 91 900 374 007. Good. So you may leave now. Bye-bye. Take care. Sayonara. See you all in the next session. All the best for the examination. Prepare well. Do well. If you are stuck anywhere, please let me know.